coworker tried to get me fired over breast implants, so I pulled a reverse Uno card. 4 years ago, breast cancer took my mother. Then it took both of my grandmothers. When a specialist told me I had cells in my own body that could turn at any second, I didn't wait. I chose a bilateral mastectomy. I removed everything to make sure I'd actually have a future. But the surgery left me with 2 jagged, pink, raised scars across my chest. They were ugly, they were jagged, and they sent me into a depression so dark I stopped leaving my flat. I threw out my mirrors because looking at myself made me physically sick. Finally, my therapist suggested a plastic surgeon that I got implants. Not for vanity, but so I could look in a mirror without sobbing. For the first time in years, my confidence came back. Then I met Jill. Jill was the kind of coworker who lived for gossip. She overheard a private joke about my implants, and by the end of the day, she told the entire office I'd had a boob job. For the next 3 months, she turned my life into a gauntlet of humiliation. She made jokes every time I was in earshot. She called me more plastic than Barbie. She called me fake in 2 ways. Behind my back, she told everyone I was just a sack of silicone. I asked her to stop. In the lift, in the bathroom, everywhere. She just smirked and kept going. The breaking point happened in the office lunchroom. I was talking to a group and mentioned that a situation felt shallow. Jill didn't even look up from her food. She just gestured toward my chest and said, "You know all about being shallow?" The table went dead silent. I didn't yell. I just gave her the truth. I told her about the cancerous cells and the scars. I told her those implants were the only reason I could look at myself without spiraling. I told her that before she judged another woman's body, she should ask why first. I walked out feeling like I'd won, but Jill was already planning her revenge. That afternoon, I got an email from HR. Jill had reported me for a hostile work environment, and the person who signed the email, Debbie, Jill's best friend. I knew they were setting me up to be fired. So I went to war. I dug through my contract and found a golden ticket. The right to an impartial overseer. If a reviewer is biased, I can demand someone else. Then I reached out to my colleagues. It turned out Jill wasn't just a bully to me. She had mocked a coworker's weight and made horrific comments about another person's nose. I spent the night gathering ammunition. By the next morning, I had 16 signed statements from people who were tired of Jill's toxicity. At 10 a.m., I walked into HR. Debbie was standing there, ready to end my career. I didn't even sit down. I pulled out my contract and told her I was invoking my right to an impartial overseer because I knew she and Jill were close friends. Debbie's face went white. She had to call in a supervisor. I handed over the folder. I gave them permission to review my medical history and told them to check the lunchroom cameras. I watched the supervisor's face as he realized Jill hadn't been the victim. She was the predator. For 5 hours, HR called in every person who had signed a letter. One by one, the office spoke up. Then, they finally called in Jill. She was in there for 30 minutes. She came back to her desk fuming, glaring at me, clearly thinking her friend, Debbie, would save her. At 5 p.m., the office watched as Jill stormed back to her desk and started shoving her things into a box. She was shouting to anyone who would listen that I had gotten her fired. She shoved her way onto the lift and vanished. 5 minutes later, the email hit my inbox. Case closed. Jill tried to use the rules to destroy me. She just didn't realize she was the one who broke them.